It is just the beginning. What you can see in Ukraine is just the beginning. Any kind of alliance are possible, and democracies are also under threat, as we have seen. The international organization, they are dying.
Hello and welcome to Ukraine in Flames, a special project by Ukraine Media Center and NGO Euro-Atlantic Force. And I'm your host, Myroslava Yaremki. The world is at a crucial point. Despite new technologies, artificial intelligence, and successful space projects, there hasn't been enough change in how countries interact with each other. Some nations still resort to aggressive wars to gain power, and some leaders are talking about using powerful weapons again. Ukraine is getting a lot of attention and is right in the middle of global events. In today's episode, we're going to talk about what does the world look like today and what might be the main trends for the future. If you want to learn more about this subject, please continue watching this video and subscribe to our channel so that you don't miss our videos in the future. The Russian war against Ukraine and the growing US-China rivalry will have a profound effect on the future of the world's political organization. The West's hope for an international system based on democracy, rule of law, and multilateral cooperation, which has already lost plausibility in recent years, now looks wholly unrealistic. Chairman of the UCMC board and Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary of Ukraine, Valeriy will ponder if the transition to a new historical stage without regional or global military conflicts is even possible, considering the events of the last 2 years.
Answering your question on the rule of law or law of jungle, I will express my personal opinion, and I consider that to be important to evaluate and to understand. I think that we can consider that the rule of law or and we have to take into account the strengths of the army and also the capability of the nation to unite, and that is at most important nowadays. So now it's not only prevailing over the rule of law, but even substituting it, and the system of international organizations who are reacting on the work of the security systems and the events which are happening nowadays. The invitation when Putin is invited to G20 in India, and nevertheless he's the war criminal and he's invited there, and Ukraine is not invited on the summit where the food security programs are going, food safety programs are going to discuss. It's not tragic for Ukraine, nothing tragic so far, but that is a signal, the signal for the world. But in my opinion, it can be considered a catastrophe for the world. But if they consider that this development is good, in this case, that is also, we can say that they are taking into account the strengths, the army's strengths, and that is why the next stage depends on whether we understand that there is not going to be the gradual development in 10-15 years. It's not going to be the development which is based on the logics of the previous changes. That are going to be very rapid changes. And so you can understand everything. You might understand how everything works in the economical world. You can understand who are the main actors in this world, but sometimes you are not able to foresee these kind of events, which can change the entire situation. And that what has happened with the Ukrainian or with the Russian war. Everyone considers that to be the hypothetical mistake, but that they have chosen the wrong way, but it happened in this way. And the conclusion is that, and I can prove it with many factors, that the countries who will not enhance their army, who will not enhance their economies and demography. And I would like to remind here that we came back to the war where, despite all the missiles, all the jets, the potential of the militaries is the key element, and the number of them. And the number of these people, the people who are motivated and who have weapons. So we came back to these kind of wars, and in these kind of resources, the countries with better resources win. And if the country is economically strong, they have diversification of the fuel supplies, and they do not depend on the key centers, key economical centers. In this case, this country has the chance to survive in this world. The country which is going to show its weakness, it is going to be attacked. And it is just the beginning. What you can see in Ukraine is just the beginning. So we are in the... So it is going to happen periodically. I wouldn't like to use the word cascade, but I do not want that to become the reality. But everything tells us that the wars will continue.
When Washington reduced its involvement in global affairs, it allowed more powerful countries in the global south, like Egypt, India, Iran, Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, and Turkey, to have more freedom to make their own moves in international politics. These countries became more active on the global stage. They formed new alliances, increased their political and economic power, and strengthened their military capabilities. Professor of Political Science at the Kyiv-Mohyla Academy and Research Director at the Ilko Kucheriv Democratic Initiatives Foundation, Oleksiy Haran, will elaborate on the role of Global South in the Russian-Ukrainian war and new geopolitical order.
When we are discussing the division in the world, it's not that strict that there are democracies and autocracies. Yes, there are more aggressive regimes which strive to change the world, and there is the Russian Federation, the People's Republic of China, Iran, and also the aggressor, Northern Korea. And Valeriy was mentioning the Second World War, that the winners punished the ones who failed this war, but the winners didn't become the winners in one day. Or we cannot say that Stalin did not violate these rules. Everything was violated, but later the situation has changed, and therefore in politics any kind of alliance are possible, and democracies are also under threat, as we have seen. And Orban and Trump are the examples. And if we are considering the global south, in this case, the situation is very complicated. So I will say in one word. So what was my mistake? Till 2022, I understood why many countries did not support us as Ukraine. They were saying that, okay, there is conflict. The Russian Federation is saying, no, you are not there. Something is happening there in Ukraine. So, but in this case, everything is obvious. Everything is obvious. And I thought that all these states will have to come with a statement. The India, the African countries, everyone has to unite. And we have to have thousands of people coming against that. And I was so naive. I was on Indian TV and I was calling people I was urging them to come to the Russian embassy and protest. And then I was told that it was counterproductive, because in their heads they have absolutely different picture. What they are observing with the mother's milk. For example, the former French and British colonies, who are they? They see colonialism everywhere, and the Soviet Union was helping them to overcome colonialism. But that is a separate topic. But in their head, the West is bad. So what do we have what do the Latin America have in their minds? The US is bad. And therefore, if the US is supporting someone, it means that there is something wrong there. So Ukraine is a puppet of the US. The same thing the Asia and the African countries think. And that shows how difficult it is to work with them. And if you understand that if they observe this with the milk of their mothers, in this case, we have just to make our way through this approach. And India is just playing on a few fields at the same time. Yes, it is. Yes, as they are saying themselves, the Russian Federation is a contradiction to the People's Republic, to China. On the land, the US is the contradiction to to the recipe on the sea. And of course, the main problem is the recipe, but we have to be friends with the Russian Federation, and they are building all their policy around these. So that is why it is so contradictory. And speaking of the morality, what can we say about the morality? Well, but once again, that is the reality. How do we need to work in this country? And now let's remember what kind of resources does the Russian Federation have, and how much do they invest in these resources?
As global competition heats up, the systems that we use to work together internationally are getting weaker. This is happening because countries are focusing more on their own power and are becoming more protective of their own economies. These trends are making it hard to keep up the cooperative agreements the global community built over many years. It becomes very difficult to solve big global problems like climate change, loss of biodiversity, failing states, poverty, food and health crisis. If the world can't come together to deal with these problems, things will probably get even more chaotic and divided. Political analyst at the Institute of Euro-Atlantic Cooperation, Volodymyr Horbach, will talk more about fragmentation of the world and the transformation of geopolitical world order.
The world is becoming more fragmented, and what is the initial state? The initial state is the integrity or the global one. For a long time, we used to live in the global world, and we were using the fruits of this global economy, of the global competition, and the enhanced economy. So maybe now we're in this state. I was mentioning the entropy or the violation of the destruction of the international law, and I think that it's also the stage of deglobalization. And what is the idea? What was the idea against this deglobalization? It was considered that the West, collective West, and the US are the leaders and the beneficiaries of this globalization, even though they were not the only ones who were the beneficiaries. They were the ones who won and who lost, but it was not that obvious that the US just won, and otherwise we wouldn't have had the response to this globalization of those Trump voters, because if they didn't have we didn't come to the American question. And to be honest, I would like to finish this meeting with a topic of the recompilation of the new international order in the new framework, because what we can see now, it is being destroyed, and our brain thinks that there should be some new order which has to be defragmented. Maybe these fragments will form the new system, because the system is degrading, because the international organization, they are dying. We do not need them anymore. Mr. Valeriy has mentioned the UN. Well, in the times of globalization or discussions against globalization, it was said that cooperation will substitute the states, national states, and now I just saw that the Organization of the United Corporations may take their places. And nowadays the war can show that it will not happen as well, because that's also not true, because we're considering ourselves as a nation, and we understand that not the corporations are going to fight each other, but the nations, the state nations. We are becoming more and more, we consider ourselves more and more as nation state, and we're the same as the others. And what is going to happen next? How this defragmentation will happen, and all of this depends on the results of, first of all, the results of our war, which we have to call the Russian war. By the way, in the world, I was coming this way, and I read the comments, how, like, Ukrainian crisis, Ukrainian conflict, now they can say Ukrainian war. And that means that these people, they are in the Russian field. They are looking from the Russian point of view. That is war in Ukraine. That is Ukrainian war. For us, it is Russian war, and it is important not only to prevail on the front line, but also on the mindset level.
You've been watching a special project by Ukraine Media Center, an Euro-Atlantic course dedicated to the Russian-Ukrainian war, Ukraine in Flames. In the description under this video, you can find information on how you can help Ukraine fight Russian aggression. If you find our work useful, please like and share this video. Slava Ukraini!